Hello everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I wanted to come on and share a prim or primitive card that I made for a crafty friend. This is going to be a surprise, so I'm not going to say who it is, but it's someone who likes this style and recently showed me an incredible kindness. So I decided I was going to try and make a card in the style that I think she likes. And I thought, what better way to try to do that but to do some watercoloring, because I think watercoloring has such a nice soft look. So I decided to take this stamp right here from the My Favorite Things You Have My Heart stamp set. And you can see it's yellowed here because I decided I was going to try no line watercoloring. And the way you need to do that is to do kind of a softer stamped image that you can then cover over completely. So I took a Ranger archival ink in sepia and then did a second generation stamping so that the image would be clear but very faint. And then I did some watercoloring using Derwent Inktense pencils. This is a watercolor pencil that has very vibrant colors. I use that on her little dress, her sleeves, and the grass. And I also use the Prima watercolor pencils in hair and skin tones. And I use that for her hair, her skin, and the dog. And then lastly, I use the Prima watercolor pencils in the basics. And I use some of the blues for the sky and the clouds. I will say that this was my first time to use Strathmore Bristol paper, which is much smoother than traditional watercolor papers, but it's great for, when you want to use a lot of liquid, so in mixed media or watercoloring. And you can see it moves the pigment around very nicely. And in order to build up the intensity of these colors, I would say I think on average I layered in probably 3 to 4 layers of color, waiting for each layer to dry before adding the next one so that I could get in all of the kind of details in her hair to make it look shiny and to, like I say, build up the color, because the key to watercoloring with watercolor pencils is to build up that color slowly. You want to get on a smooth pencil layer and then watercolor over top of that. I used a Pentel water brush, and if I thought there was too much water coming out of it, I just dabbed it on a tissue and then kept going, layer after layer. And like I say, the key to watercoloring that way is to build up those layers and make sure that each layer is dry before you go on to the next layer of color, because you don't want to touch the watercolor pencil directly onto a wet surface, because the pigment will come out too darkly if you're going for this kind of soft look. So after I finished coloring that up, I cut it down using the largest of this MFT Die-namics cross-stitch rectangle die set, because I really like how the cross-stitching adds to that primitive look. Then behind that, I had a paper doily that I cut in half and tucked kind of wonky the lower left and the upper right sides of this image. And then I layered a vellum layer underneath that. And then I put the whole thing onto this sketchy pattern paper. This is from the old Amy Tangerine sketchbook collection, and it's this paper right here. And I thought that that yellow echoed the yellow in her little sleeves, and I thought it grounded the whole assembly really nicely. Then I took it to my sewing machine, which I rarely do because my sewing machine is all packed up and in a high shelf in my craft room. But for this special project, I decided to take that out, and I just did some wonky stitching right along the top and left the ends just dangling to add a little softness. And there's nothing like stitching to add to a primitive look, I think. And I did that in a wonky way to kind of also echo the sketchy lines of this pattern paper. Then I popped up everything on double-sided foam adhesive and then mounted everything on a handmade paper card base. And then lastly, for the inside, I just took another piece of that sketchy yellow paper and then matted a white cardstock piece where I stamped "You Bring Out the Best in Me" and this little dangling ornament heart, which are both from this stamp set. So that's my card. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day. Thanks for watching.